All right, welcome back to the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Witt. With me, as always, Mr. Adam Schmidt. Adam, how are you?
Outstanding. How are you?
If I was any better, I would be our guest. That's how good I would be.
Wow.
Yeah. So joining us, we're going to start off real quick today. Not gonna beat around the bush. We have Xavier men's basketball beat writer, but probably more known for his fullback abilities in high school at Elder. Mr. Adam Baum. Adam, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well, man. Thank you guys for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
We appreciate you coming
Pleasure's
in.
ours, yeah.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, man. You mentioned the Elder football prowess. I still hold just an unfathomable record at Elder. So I am. You mentioned that I played fullback. I'm the only person in Elder football history to finish a season with negative rushing and receiving yards to still score a touchdown.
Wow.
That's real.
That's awesome, dude. Hey, that's something in the record books that's probably not going to cut. That's probably not going to be broken.
That's very unique.
Someone would have to really try to pull that off,
Yeah.
to take that away
You
from
ain't
me.
kidding. You ain't kidding. When did you graduate from Elder? What year are you?
I was 2006.
2006. All right, so you're not far from us. I was 02. Adam.
I was 2000.
Yeah, so
you're definitely younger, but
Yeah, we're in the wheelhouse, though.
There you go,
we're
brother.
on the club.
That sounds good. In the club. There you go. All right, so let's get started, man, because this Xavier team, obviously, when we first talked to you, I was hoping they might be coming off a 5-game winning streak, but they lost to Butler the other night. It just didn't look.
Snapped them.
It just didn't look the same.
No, not. And I kind of thought with this team, I've tried to predict what they're going to do, and it's been very, very complicated. They've been kind of really hard to predict in that regard. But I just think with everything they've been through, I thought it might be hard to sustain that play and then you're going into a hostile environment. It's senior night at Butler, and you're running into a team that wants nothing more than to beat you and just shut you down. So in the back of my mind, I knew that was going to be a really tough game for them, and they just didn't bring what they had been bringing these last few weeks. They didn't look the same on both ends of the floor, I thought, and Butler kind of took it to them and made shots down the stretch, and Xavier really didn't have a response late in the game.
Yeah. So what is this last run that they went on? So I'm a season ticket holder. I go to every game. They just look like a completely different team than they did in the beginning of the year. Is that coaching finally catching up with the players? I mean, Quentin Gooden finally kind of started looking like he wanted to be out there, or is this just a period of time that it took because of the new coaching and the players are actually fitting in better?
I think it's more of a period of time situation, because when I talked to Travis at the beginning of the year, he told me very point blank that what we just saw from this team, that little mini run they went on, was kind of his hope for this team. That's what he thought that they could be. It could be, hey, you know what, we're going to play really connected on the defensive end, and that's going to lead to offense for us. Najee Marshall's going to take over games on the offensive end of the floor, and then we got guys like Quentin Gooden and Paul Scruggs who can drive, who can occasionally knock down a jumper. And then, we got Tyreek Jones inside and Zach Hankins inside. We're just going to beat people up on the glass. And that was kind of the blueprint. That's how they wanted it all to unfold. And I just think that bit by bit, game by game, when it didn't happen, I think that kind of gave people pause. I think it was kind of, well, is it going to happen? Why we're still waiting for this to happen? And, I think it finally came together. I think these guys kind of really took accountability, and it really happened on the defensive end, because I know Steele's gotten a lot of flack because at the beginning of this year, he made a comment that he thought that this could be one of the better defensive teams that Xavier's ever seen. And for a long time this season, people are like, wow, where is that team? Because, I'm not seeing that team.
Exactly.
And I think that at some point something clicked with them on the defensive end. And it's hard to kind of put your finger on one thing, but, whether it was adjustments, whether it was guys just starting to buy into what he was selling, I think maybe a combination of all those things. But something definitely changed throughout the course of this season. And one of the things, I don't know how the rest of this year is going to go. I don't know how it's going to play out. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they go make a run in the Big East tournament. But I think the simple fact that they've given people something to kind of cheer about and be excited about this year is kind of, I think that's a win in and of itself for a first-year head coach, considering everything that's changed with this program.
Yeah, I mean, he's working. I mean, he's got 3 walk-ons, 2
Yep.
freshmen who you never see. I mean, Keontae Kennedy's left the team for personal reasons or whatever he's got. So, and James doesn't ever see the court. So, it's yeah. I mean, that's 5 new people. I mean, this is a whole new team basically. Your 3 of your 4 best scorers, your 4 top scorers were gone because Kaiser Gates is no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I mean, this team. Could you imagine this team with Kaiser Gates, a guy that can knock down threes?
It would help so much.
It's unbelievable.
Just spreading the floor and giving these guys more space to operate, because one of the biggest problems that I think that this team has had to overcome is that you look at last year, and last year was this great example of like people got a glimpse of Najee Marshall and you know, you see Paul Scruggs periodically, and Quentin Gooden was really good offensively last year. And I think the biggest reason why that was because those guys had so much space to operate because Trayvon Blewett and JP McCurry drew so much attention. Those guys are out there on the perimeter away from the basket, and they've got a defender draped on them. And what that does is it opens up the floor for everyone else. We'll turn the page to this year, and you got no shooters on the perimeter, and these guys are all seeing a really tight floor. They, you know, people are not up in their face guarding them. I mean, they just it's kind of been a hard thing for them to overcome. That's why you bring in Ryan Wellage. And you mentioned the grad transfers. I told someone the other day, I said, can you imagine what this team would be like if they don't go out and get those 3 grad transfers this year? Like,
I don't know if we look like Alabama from last year where they had to finish a game with 3 or 4 players.
Yeah, exactly, man. It would have been ugly.
Yeah, I agree. So of these three transfers that came in, I mean, it's obviously Hankins that's made the biggest impact on this team.
Yeah, man. I mean, because without him on the floor and being able to kind of complement Tyreek Jones, they don't have any inside press. I mean, Tyreek is great, but him by himself, anytime he comes off the floor, you're going with a small lineup with no big man.
And you saw, I mean, that was the change for them this year. When they put Hankins and Jones into the starting lineup together, all of a sudden you see everything start. You saw that run start to change. They looked 100 times like a completely different team.
Yeah, I know. I think one of the things I definitely want to talk to Travis about after the season, because I just don't know that I'll get a fully complete thought on it right now while they're still playing games, is I'm curious if he wishes he would have. I'm sure that the answer is going to be yes, but I'm curious if he wishes if he would have gone to that earlier, because we didn't see that until, you know, a few games into the Big East season.
Yeah.
Who knows how some of these other games might have played out if you would have tried that and gotten your feet wet with it earlier in the year, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's true. I wonder. We've talked about that. I mean, well, you hear the rumblings in the crowd all the time why those two never got in together. But you know, Steele's going through he's going through a lot, and he's you can tell that he's a first time head coach. He's had games where he feel like he doesn't make any substitutions in the second half, and these guys are worn out. Of course, he doesn't have that big of a bench. What's your thoughts on his first year?
Well, I think, and you know, I tend, and this could be a good thing, or I guess some people could throw it at me as a negative thing, but I kind of like to look at things through a little bit of an optimistic lens. And I think with this year, you see kind of a young coach who's still trying to find himself a little bit. And I think in the long run, the fact that he's had to go through a year like this, the fact that he's had to struggle, and he's had to overcome, and he's had to hear, you know, boos at Cintas Center, and he's had to watch fans leave games early, you know, against DePaul on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
It's like going through that and kind of getting that out of the way and surviving it. I think that might be the biggest thing to take away from this season for Travis Steele personally as a young coach, because it's like A lot of coaches, I'm not as familiar with Chris Mack's tenure and kind of what I know. Sean Miller coming in right away, his first year had a rough year at Xavier. I
Yep.
think that they went like 15-12 or something like that. But you can't put a price on failure. And as much as fans want to see people succeed and they want to see success in NCAA tournament runs and conference championships, there are going to be years like this. And I think that kind of the fact that Travis has gotten to experience this year one, I think if you know him personally and you see what he's doing away from the court, like he's doing everything he can to make sure that they never have to experience this again. Like, he's already gone out and he's gotten some major recruits for next year. He's gotten major recruits for the year after. They're still working on some more, but I think you can really see how this kind of struggle has already affected him. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away so far from this year.
Yeah. So you don't think that this down year? I mean, like it's his first year, but you don't feel like the way that they played it hasn't hurt recruiting at all.
No. Actually, I think the funny thing about this is like right now he's kind of got a real good recruiting pitch for a lot of guys. Is that you look
Yeah.
at what's coming back next year.
We got some PT for you.
Yeah, man, you're going to be able to get on the floor day one if you earn it and come right in and work for it. And it's like a lot of these guys, the Big East is very alluring to young college basketball, prospects because all the national televised games, Madison Square Garden guaranteed at the end of the year. It's
Yep.
like there's a lot of things working in their favor there. And then Xavier has the benefit of kind of that pedigree. Like, hey, you come here and there's a very good chance it might work out for you. A lot of guys playing in the NBA, playing overseas professionally. So it's like I don't know that the down year has hurt them in terms of the recruiting department at all.
Yeah, Adam, the Big East you kind of mentioned. Every team's going to be able to recruit well in the Big East, and
Yep.
we kind of see this year. I think some people think the Big East is down this year. You have Villanova and Marquette, kind of separated themselves at the top, but then you have almost everybody else kind of in the same spot. As far as the Big East record and their overall record are all pretty close. So it's kind of it feels like everybody's kind of just beating everybody. Like everybody's 1-1 against each other almost. What do you see for the Big East tournament? Like what kind of draw do you expect Xavier to get? And I know a lot of stuff's going to happen. There's still several big games, in this on Saturday. For the Big East, but going into the tournament, what do you see as a draw possibly for Xavier, and what kind of path they're going to have to? Because I mean, if we're talking still a possibility, maybe I know the Butler loss wasn't great for them, but if they beat St. John's and at least get to the championship game of the Big East tournament,
That gives you 2 or 3 more quad one wins, right?
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Yep. I mean, you probably want to avoid Villanova and Marquette all the way to the championship if you can. But
I'm more scared of Marquette because the way Xavier's – I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong about this, Adam. I'd be more scared of Marquette right now because of the way they shoot, whereas Villanova's been slowing the ball down so much over this year that I feel that works in our favor more. Obviously, when we beat them, it worked in our favor. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I think Marquette's a little bit more of a complete team, and like the Hauser brothers to me are just absolutely terrifying to match up with, because it's like the moment that you spend too much time on Marcus Howard, it's like those guys are knocking down shots, and then it's your head starts spinning and it doesn't stop spinning until the times run out on the scoreboard. Villanova is always scary because I feel like they're even if you beat them good earlier in the year, it's like they're going to be ready for the rematch. But like you asked me about the Big East tournament, and I'm predicting just absolute mayhem because like if you look at what's happened this year, I mean earlier on in the year, St. John's beat Marquette by like 20 points, and DePaul comes on the road to Xavier and beats Xavier. And it's just like there are so many snapshot games like that this year in the Big East where it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And you mentioned, you hit the nail on the head, Adam. It's that everyone is beating up on each other this year. And I think, people want to throw that out that the Big East is having a down year. And that may very well be true. But at the end of the day, the Big East still has some of the top tier talent in the country in terms of punching power. I mean, Marcus Howard, he can score with anybody in the country. And then you got like Miles Powell and Shamari Pons. And I mean, they're top. I mean, there is top tier talent in the Big East. I think that next year you're going to see a resurgence in the Big East, like 100%. I think next year there's going to be quite a few teams that are right ranked at the start of the year, and they're probably going to be ranked at the end of the year. But in terms of Xavier's draw, so much of it depends on what happens on Saturday night at Cintas, because really what Xavier is playing for in that game is a first round bye in the Big East tournament. And what that means is Big East tournament starts on Wednesday. There's going to be a doubleheader that night. And then Xavier would play on Thursday. That's if they can beat St. John's on Saturday night. So that means you're getting an extra day of rest and preparation for whoever you're going to play. And that team will have to play essentially a play-in game the night before. So you're going to get them coming off a game the night before. So beat St. John's on Saturday and then kind of worry about what else comes in, like how the picture tapes, because it's like you start thinking about what might your draw be and who might we get in the second round, or what could be waiting for us in the championship. But it's like, if Xavier can do themselves a gigantic favor by beating St. John's and getting an extra day and rest time on their opponent in the first round,
Right. So you're going to have to help me out with this. So let's talk about that Big East tournament, because as fans, we're going to look ahead. I know the team won't, but we are. If there's what is it now, 4 or 5 teams tied for third place, how in God's name are they going to sort this out?
Oh, so the tiebreaker is interesting. And I'm not completely read up on this, but I have been looking into it a little bit. Essentially, I think what it is if you guys share a record, like if you're tied at the end of the regular season, then it goes to the team behind you. There's a tiebreaker. So it's a head-to-head record against that team is what I think is my understanding of how it plays out. So
head-to-head against the team that's behind you guys.
Correct.
Each year's. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like a perfect example is Villanova and Marquette. If they both win, so if they would finish tied atop the standings for first place, and they split, so you have to split the regular season series. I don't think I mentioned that, but
right.
If you split the regular season series, then the tiebreaker is head-to-head record against the team, like the third place finishing team. Yeah.
And then I guess so on and so forth down the line.
So on and so forth. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, right now you have St. John's, Seton Hall, Creighton, and Xavier all tied for 4th place.
This could be fun. It's gonna be a crazy weekend going in to see what happens at the end of this weekend.
It's kind of perfect, because I feel like the regular season has been pandemonium and mayhem. The last weekend of the regular season should be pandemonium and mayhem.
Let's just keep it going.
Next week is going to be more pandemonium and mayhem.
That's why we love this time of year.
There you go.
Oh yeah, man, it's awesome. There's always something going on.
Yep. So if they don't make the tournament, what are your thoughts on the NIT? We saw Chris Mack a couple years ago didn't go. We went last time Xavier didn't make the tournament. We didn't go to the NIT or anything. We went to no tournaments.
Yeah.
Is that something you think they'll accept an invitation to if they were to get it, or you think it's the NITs? I don't know exactly how teams feel about it. I know the players probably want to continue to play.
Yeah, I think there are some teams that kind of feel like it's beneath them, like, oh, why would we go play in this? But for a first-year head coach, and for essentially, you look at it, you're going to have Quentin Gooden back, Paul Scruggs, Najee Marshall, Tyreek Jones, and then kind of the rest, Elias Harden. And I think that getting them more time and more games could be a valuable thing in the future for Xavier. So I'm not positive how they feel about that, but if I were making the decision, I would say, hey, let's go play. Let's get more time together on a basketball court and try to spiral that into next year. Mm-hmm. And then the other cool thing is, like, you like playing at Madison Square Garden. If you can make the Final Four in the NIT, you get to go back to Madison Square Garden because that's where that's held at. So it's like there is kind of some cool stuff to play for in the NIT if you choose to do so.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I kind of like the NIT. I used to print out a bracket and fill one out just for fun.
You fill out, yeah, but he fills out a bracket for anything.
I
If
fill
there's
out
a
my
tournament.
25 NCAA tournament brackets, and then I fill out an NIT and
There you go.
whatever the other one is. The
CBI?
The NIT,
Yeah, the
there you
CBI,
go.
there you
The NIT's fun though because they put all those crazy rules in there, like the trapezoid or whatever lane, that like they play with in overseas and stuff. And they were the first ones to do the 30-second shot clock. I enjoy it. I think it's fun.
It's more basketball.
That's right. Exactly. You can't go wrong with that.
Hey, speaking of more basketball, before you became the beat writer for Xavier, you covered high school sports for the Enquirer, correct?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So
and it was awesome.
Yeah, that would be an awesome gig. And speaking of more basketball, our Panthers are still around in the tournament. Are you following the Panthers still?
So yeah, I kind of what I'll do is I'll follow them on Twitter and kind of just unfortunately with the way the season goes, I don't get the chance to show up and watch them the way I would like to, but
sure.
I feel like this has kind of become the norm. It's like, all right, we're going to take some lumps during the regular season these last few years, but this is like the second year in a row that they've had kind of a 500 year in the regular season, and then they make it to a district semifinal or a district final or whatever,
Yeah.
They've been doing that for a lot of years, though.
Yeah,
that's been an MO since I was even back in school. Well, now Adam was in school. I don't know if you some really old blasts from the past, but Sean Rowland and Mike Kelsey and those guys. So he got to see some teams that were good from the beginning to the end. But most of the rest of us just saw some good ball players that turned it up come tournament time.
Yeah,
man. My senior year was Kyle Rudolph's sophomore year, and they had a great year that year.
Yeah.
They, I think they made it to the regional final and lost like Reynoldsburg or something like that. But that was a pretty good team. That was a team that I'll never forget. They started off the season like 16 or 17-0, and then they go over to Oak Hills and they lost to Oak Hills on the road. I'll never forget that. But that was a rough one.
That's the toughest place to lose if you're an Elder fan. You
yeah.
get out of the GCL. The GCL, you take your lumps in the GCL. When you lose to Oak Hills, you got to take the beating from all the Oak Hills people because we beat up on them so bad in football that you got to take it.
Some soul searching comes after that loss, I feel like.
Beat them twice this year, though.
There you go.
I know, man. Got them twice.
Hey, I still tell people to this day that Kyle Rudolph was a better high school basketball player than high school football player. What do you think about that?
I kind of tend to agree, and I've had this conversation with people before, and it's interesting. I was just at the Elder Stag, and Kyle was the featured speaker, and I meant to ask him about this, and it completely passed on my mind. But I think it's interesting to find out who all wanted him to play college basketball, because I know that there were some pretty big programs, I think, that were interested in him coming to play college basketball for him. And I always thought, I think he was so dead set on Notre Dame football that might have turned some people away that might have been interested in him. But I'm always curious to hear, who were the colleges that tried to persuade you the hardest,
Yeah. I think he could have played basketball for Notre Dame. I mean, I think he was that good. I don't know if he would have been a superstar in college, but he was a nice player, man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
The old back to the basket.
Yeah,
kind of guy.
He could step out and shoot it too, though, a little bit. I mean, anyway,
so
he was a stud.
So I got just one or two more questions if you got a couple seconds here. So
yeah, man, go for it.
My question for you is: you're a hometown guy, so you're from Cincy. We've talked about that. You cover Xavier. You're not an out of town guy. Were you a Xavier fan before? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. But were you a Xavier fan before? And two, how does that affect you being an actual journalist and being a hometown fan? That's got to be tough.
Yeah. So I was fortunate growing up because my dad was like a diehard sports fan, but he was kind of all over the board. He loved the Reds. And we rooted for the Bengals, but kind of outside of that, it was fair game to kind of just support anyone and everyone. So I distinctly remember, I've thought about this since I got the job, but I remember when Xavier played Duke in the Elite Eight in 2004.
Just take Miles out. Take him out. Take him out of the game. He gets his 4th foul. What are you doing? Why don't you take him out of that game?
You don't know.
You have no idea
You don't know
what
what you
that
just
does
did,
to me,
Adam.
dude. I don't know what that
Sorry.
does.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding.
No, but
Sheldon Williams killed us after that.
Where I was going with that is I remember watching that game with my dad and rooting so hard for Xavier to win that game, and it's just like I can't sit here and say that I've been a Xavier fan my whole life, because the truth is I went to UC and I rooted for UC growing up too, because I was kind of more a Cincinnati guy more than I identified with like one specific fan base. But in terms of being a journalist, you mentioned high school sports. I got a great kind of introduction in how to swallow my pride and kind of, sit on my past and kind of smother that a little bit, if you will, because like I got to cover Elder high school sports, but I also had to cover like St. X. I had to cover Coleraine. I had to cover LaSalle, and not just cover them, like write stories about them winning state championships. And it's like you get over that stuff pretty fast, because it's like, if anyone in that fan base thinks that I'm doing them a disservice covering their team, they're gonna let someone know. And it's like, I feel fortunate that I get to do this job. So it's like it would be incredibly foolish of me to let something as simple as fandom get in the way of it. But it's like it does come into play. And the other thing I tell people all the time is like, it's way more fun to write stories after they win games than after that. Now that doesn't mean I'm walking into the arena like with my Xavier underwear on and I'm like, I hope that they win this game. But it's like, the fact of the matter is, the reality is, if they win this game, it's probably going to mean that I get to write a better story, that I get better quotes after the game, that they're more fun and more engaging to talk to. So it's like all that stuff plays a role in it,
Who's the best quote on that team?
Ooh,
is it Tyreek Jones? I feel like it's got to be Tyreek Jones, right? That dude's
I
a
will
nut.
say this. Tyreek is incredibly entertaining, but he is very unwilling to do the post-game press conferences and
really?
the pre-game. He does not like to do them, I think, very much. So kind of what's become is Najee Marshall's great. He's really funny. He's very entertaining, but he tends to be like a one-sentence guy. And Paul Scruggs is kind of like that too. So that's like, you'll ask him a question and they might give you like a few words in a sentence, and that'll be their answer. They don't really expound upon it. The person who does that the best is Quentin Gooden. And I think that he's gotten comfortable in that. And it's funny because, I think that like Tom Iser is the Xavier kind of SID media relations guy. And after games, sometimes it's like he has to go in there and try to convince one of these guys to come out here and talk to us. And it's like, I think Quentin has gotten so used to being that guy that he's gotten pretty good at talking to the media after games. Awesome. Zach Hankins is really entertaining too. So anytime he takes the podium, he's can't miss.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. He's a fun guy, full of energy.
Yeah, I feel like Xavier would have loved to have him for 4 years instead of 1.
It's disappointing that that guy only gets to play Division I basketball for a year, because I mean he's not the best defender when it comes to like just straight man outside of the paint, but that guy. There's something he's got. Him and Tyreek Jones have some kind of record of blocks in a season or something like that, I think, going right now. Those two are insane in the paint. I know. And most of them are from behind, but anyway, I like Hankins a lot. It's been fun to see.
Yeah, and the thing that I remind myself when I watch Hankins play is like, this time last year he was playing against Division II teams, Division II players. This year coming in, he's playing against Division I guys for the very first time, and he's really handled himself very well, like at a very high level. I feel like if he would have had some more time to really kind of sink his teeth in and grow at the Division I level, he'd have been an all conference level guy for sure.
Yeah, he was great last night against Butler.
He was the biggest shining spot in it. All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate it. We'll let you get back to the Netflix.
Absolutely.
But before we got on, you were telling us what's the Netflix show that we're watching?
Well, so I'm in on the Umbrella Academy right now, but Netflix is just they have some heavy hitters, man. They're consistent. Now they're breaking my heart with like the Punisher and that stuff, not renewing that. And I think that that's just they've got some issues with Disney because Disney owns, some of the comic book franchises. But it's like I ride or die with Netflix right now, man.
There you go. I see you. Well, that's
thanks
awesome, man. Hey, buddy,
guys.
I
really
appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah.
hopefully down the road something good goes with Xavier. Maybe you can get back on here. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, anytime, man. You got my number. I'd love to come back on.
Appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, Adam.
It's Adam, you wanna tell everybody how to follow you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So, anything that I do can be found at Cincinnati.com, and then I'm pretty active on Twitter, and my Twitter name is just Adam J. Baum, Baum.
Great follow.
Thank you.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you guys have a good night.
You
All
too.
right, see you.
Bye.
All right.
Very
Thanks
nice.
a lot, Adam. Yeah, we appreciate that. That's Adam with the Cincinnati Enquirer's Xavier beat writer. See if we can't get some more of those kind of interviews going in the future.
Yep, that was successful. I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like that went pretty well. Not even gonna have to edit anything. I don't
No
think.
way.
I think we're ready to
Tons
go.
of great insight from him.
Yeah, he got wealth of knowledge on the Xavier side of things. Wealth of knowledge. I thought I had an idea what was going on. So anyway, we appreciate that, but let's move on, man. While we're on college basketball, let's go ahead and keep it going.
Yeah. So my internet is failing now on my computer, but
Nice.
for whatever reason.
Well, that's
but,
good.
I was looking earlier
That's not a good thing for me because you're hooked into. You should be
into-
hooked up
into
to
your-
my
As
internet.
long as you're good, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go on memory, which is the worst possible thing to do for me because my memory is the opposite of an elephant. If an elephant never forgets, whatever the opposite of an elephant is, that's what I am.
There you go.
But I was looking earlier at it. It looks like, speaking of the Big East, we were just talking to Adam about the Big East. It looks like at least Joe Lunardi's bracketology so far has like 4 teams in there. Now, that does not. So that was you got Marquette, you got Marquette, Villanova, St. John's, and the last one was the team that just beat Marquette tonight, Seton Hall. So those are the 4 that he's got in right now. Now you have Georgetown, who is kind of right there too. I think Seton Hall has another win or two that another probably quadrant 1 win or two more so than Georgetown, which is why they haven't really been discussed as much about. But they are a bubble team.
Yeah.
They play. Georgetown gets. Hold on, I've got it written down in my notes, my sloppy notes that don't have any rhyme or reason here. Georgetown has Marquette.
Okay.
So Georgetown has Marquette on Saturday. You have X and St. John's, Villanova, and Seton Hall. All 3 of those Big East games are going to have, some ramifications for probably seeding in the Big East tournament and whether or not, teams may or may not get at-large bids into the NCAA tournament. So that's going to be really interesting for the Big East. You got your normal heavy hitters. I think your 1 seeds he's got right now: Duke, Kentucky, Gonzaga, and Virginia.
So last 4 in right now. Lenardi's got Bama, Seton Hall, Temple, TCU. First 4 out: Clemson, St. Mary's, Furman, and Murray State. A team like Furman is the kind of team that hurts all your middle tier big conference teams, because that's a team that if something happens and they don't win their conference tournament and they end up with a seed, that's taken away from somebody else. But he right now has Xavier as the next 4 out.
Okay.
And Georgetown. He's got Georgetown in there too.
So
a whole lot of Big East teams in that bubble conversation.
And it's been such a wild season so far in the Big East with everybody beating everybody. It's going to be, we could see the same thing in the tournament, and that could mean that, Seton Hall finds their way out and Georgetown or Xavier finds their way in to the NCAA tournament, depending on how everybody does. That's the thing that we were, I think, getting at with Adam was, that's kind of what I meant when I said it. I think people think the Big East is down, but it's not necessarily down. It might even be a little bit of the opposite, because every team is good enough to beat the top team in the league. I mean, you know, it's your Creightons and your the bottom 2 or 3 teams are good enough to beat Villanova or Marquette on a given night. Now, a 10-game series or something, you're going to lose 8 times or 9 times, but they are good enough to compete with those teams. And so that, you might get a Xavier or a Creighton or a Seton Hall or a Georgetown that ends up winning the Big East tournament.
Oh, 100%. I think any of the, well, I don't know about any of them, but there's 5 teams that could win the Big East tournament, which
easily
could throw a wrench into a whole lot of things for a whole lot of different people. But let's get into the number 1 seeds. We right now, obviously Duke sitting on a 1 seed. You got Gonzaga sitting on a 1 seed, Virginia and Kentucky. Out of those 4, who's your most complete? Who's your team you like the best out of that? Now, I know that's a big thing.
It's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question because Duke just struggled against Wake Forest without Zion Williamson. So obviously that's a big deal. Now they still have 2 of the top 4 players in the draft on that team, so they're still a number 1 seed without Zion Williamson.
Correct.
But they're not that over and above number 1 seed. Kentucky's been coming on strong. The SEC is the surprise, not the surprise. I shouldn't say the surprise. They've slowly been getting better and better and better as a conference. It's not just Kentucky and Florida anymore. You got Tennessee, you got Alabama. There's a ton of good. Auburn's in there. The Auburn playing really well. So I like Kentucky. Virginia is a number 1 seed again, and you kind of feel bad for them. I want them in a number 1 seed because I need them. I need to see them get over that hump.
Me too. I want that.
I feel like that team needs to win a game in the tournament. That's got to be the worst way to ever end a season, and to come back in as a number 1 seed. You need that.
I know fans, especially, kind of your fringe fans that are going to watch the NCAA tournament that don't normally watch college basketball but will watch the tournament because it's the tournament and because it's a very exciting time and everything, and you get your bracket out and all that kind of stuff, see how you do. But, so Virginia's not a fun team for people like that, that are just watching, because they are just defense, and they are trying to beat you 55-48. And I think every other basketball team in the world right now is trying to beat you, 115-114.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. I love Bennett. I love his attention to detail on defense and what they do and how they like just everything is on stopping you. And I just want to see a team like that. I just want to see that Virginia team finally, because they've been high seeds in the last few years, but they've had early exits, and for whatever reason, you just run into those teams that.
And the crazy thing is you always talk about how good defensive teams seem to do well in the tournament.
But
so
you have to have a little of both.
You do got to have a little bit of both, because as I say that, you think of your North Carolinas that make runs every year and they're up and down, big scoring teams. So, yeah. But so on that note, let's flip over to Gonzaga, who they also have as a number 1 seed. Gonzaga, we talk about Duke and how great Duke is. They beat Duke when Duke was playing well. It was early in the season, but Duke was still playing very well. And those 3 guys, Cam Reddish, Zion Williamson, and R.J. Barrett, were all playing well together and have been for a while. So they beat Duke. And, it was a close game. They beat them by 2 months ago, back in November. So this team, nobody gets to see because they're on the West Coast, but they are as good as it gets. They're back again. This team for 20 years now has been a mainstay at the top of this tournament. And I would like to see Duke. Or not Duke. I would like to see. I like all these number 1 seeds, to be honest with you.
So do I.
But I just like this Gonzaga team. They are that well-rounded, good defense, and can put a lot of points on the board at the same time.
I'll tell you, those 2 teams, Virginia and Gonzaga, are the 2 number 1 seeds that I want to see get to the Final Four more than any of the other ones. And I consider myself a little bit of a Duke fan. Like I became.
You're an
over
ACC
the years,
fan.
I like the ACC and I like Duke. I always root for Duke. I hated their guts when I was a kid because Christian Laettner and they beat Michigan and anyway, but I grew to really love and respect what Mike Krzyzewski built there and just the pride and the tradition and stuff that they built that program into. So it's really fun. It's fun to watch them, and they're on they're on ESPN every single one of their games. It's like they personally have a contract with ESPN. They don't, but it's like that because even when they play teams that are very low level teams that they're going to beat by 40, their game is at 7:00 on whatever night.
Well, listen, Zion Williamson is prime time. So
reason.
Even if they're playing Army beating them by 22, he's prime time. You're going to see it.
Yep. And speaking of him, it's you kind of mentioned it a minute ago. I think they're 3-2 now without him. So and they've looked different. They've looked a little bit different. You think, they've got 4 NBA players on their team, including him. So they still have 3 without him. No, hardly anybody else has that. So you expect them to still dominate, even in the ACC, but they haven't. They didn't dominate without him. Their field goal percentage is down like 15% or something when he's not on the floor. Their field goal percentage and their defense in the lane too. He's a big time shot blocker. He's only like 6'6" or something like that, and he's a big time shot blocker.
It's insane. Well, he can jump out of the gym. We've seen that. He hit his head on the rim, blocking a shot. Which they made a big deal out of that. If you watch most dunks and most people block shots, their head's above the rim anyway. He just so happened to be flying a little too.
He's got a special vertical leap though.
You ain't kidding. It's powerful. Remember we talked about the dunk competition, about how if you're gonna win the dunk competition, you need power, not a finesse dunk. You need to throw it down, and the whole place has got to feel it when you dunk. That dude, it's like LeBron. You feel it when they dunk.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. So he's
so damn powerful. He went through his shoe.
He went through his shoe. Yes. And because he went through his shoe, his knee buckled or whatever, and he's got the sprained knee. So that's what he's been out 5 games now. And they're talking about. So they have Carolina for their last regular season game. They have Carolina again this Saturday, and it sounded like to me that he was possibly going to be back yesterday for the Wake Forest game. And then they kept him out. And then after that game, Mike Krzyzewski said, it just doesn't make sense to – he's still working back. He's probably kind of close, but it just, they're not going to rush him back. They're not going to rush him back, and he's probably not going to play against Carolina. But it is the Carolina-Duke rivalry. We'll see what happens. Game time decision.
Yeah.
We'll see. But either way, he's going to have to come back at some point before you would think if he doesn't come back against Carolina, he'll be back in the ACC tournament at some point, right?
Right. So I haven't heard Zion Williamson talk since this happened. What have you heard any interviews with him? Has he said anything?
He's always a really positive kid.
He's a great dude. But I mean, does it? So he's seems to me like the kind of guy like if he can play, he's gonna play.
Oh, absolutely. I think he definitely will. And you kind of had you heard as soon as that happened 2 weeks ago or whatever, people immediately jumped on and said kind of the new age way of thinking, like we talked about with the bowl games. If you are a surefire pro in this coming draft, just sit out. Just don't come back.
Shut him down.
Shut him down. Don't risk any further injury.
We've talked about it with college, and I took with college football, like you said, and I've taken the stance of make money. It's all about you. You're a business. This, that, and the other. But I'm going to tell you that I truly believe. I just feel like this basketball is like college basketball might be slightly different. I don't know. There's not as many games. You don't have the I mean, you have full contact constantly, but it's not the collisions that you have in football. So I feel like these kids, like, they want to get out there and play.
Yeah, I never played football, so I can't really speak to that as a player. But we both played basketball our whole lives, so I feel like, and of course our our level of play is a lot different than somebody who, like you
I mean,
said, is going to make
I was
millions.
runner up to Zach Hankins for Division II Player of the Year, but
Last year.
last year.
Oh, congratulations! I didn't know that.
It's a 34-year-old D2 player.
So it was a mercy.
Yeah,
they gave it to you.
It was kind of like
Feel sorry for the old guy.
It was kind of like
Yeah.
Dirk getting the All-Star game. That's how that was for me.
Yeah. So, the best, I think, and I don't know that I've ever said this, but I think the person that said it best so far that I've heard is Charles Barkley, who I think is actually pretty horrible on TV. We talked about that too before.
I love Charles.
I do love him on that show, but he doesn't speak intelligently about basketball all the time.
Right.
But he did say, and it's very simple. He kind of just simplified it. We're there to you pros and big time college players, they play basketball. That's what they do. It's not, there's no, whether you're going to be a pro and you're risking losing all this money if you blow out your ACL or something like that. That doesn't really matter. I mean, that can happen at any single moment in a practice, in a game.
Sure.
When you're walking to your refrigerator at home. I mean, that can happen at any time. If you live your whole life, including when you're playing your game, whatever game you play, whatever sport you play, you live like that. When are you ever going to play? They're talking about that with LeBron now.
Yes, talking about him shutting him down just because
the Lakers are kind of out of contention now.
Here's the deal. This, to me, basketball and football are different in this case, and it really comes down. You play 82 games in the NBA season. There's 16 in an NFL season. There's a reason why you have more injuries in the NFL than you do in the NBA in less games. It's more physical. It's more contact. So that part of it, I don't agree with shutting him down, shutting Zion down, or LeBron for that matter. I really don't agree with that because you're an NBA player. You're out there to get paid. Forget shutting him down. I understand he may not be 100%, but he looks good to me.
He's 99.8%.
He's darn near averaging a triple-double since he's been back. 26.5 points a game, 11 rebounds and 9 assists or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate this shut him down. I'm not a fan of the shut him down in basketball like this.
And first of all, it wouldn't be allowed. The league has rules now against that.
That's
right?
true. But
and that kind of came from him too.
It did. It came from LeBron. But at the same time, he's coming off that injury. He can tweak it. He can have it. There's ways to get around.
You can lie about it.
It wouldn't even be a lie. You can't tell me that he doesn't still feel a little something probably.
Not enough to
that dude's 34. He's 34, 35 years old, playing every single game. Something's hurting him. I guarantee it.
Sure, but not enough to keep him out. And
I
the league
agree.
knows that.
No, I agree. And I'm going to tell you that I think LeBron played every single game last year, and that was the year after the league made the change of limiting back-to-backs and all the different things that they did to purposely because the players were complaining and the players were sitting out. And LeBron was the main vocal point in that conversation. And I truly believe that we talked about this last year. I said, I think there was something out there. Adam Silver said, all right, we're going to do this, but I need you every single night.
Yes. Yep. And
I
year
think
after,
that still goes.
Yeah, it was it just last year? Last year or 2 years ago, the first year that they put that in place, LeBron played all 82.
It was last year.
It was last year. Right.
He played every game.
So as he should. And if you're healthy, you should be playing. There's no question about it. It doesn't matter. Yes, teams tank. Yes, teams do tank.
What about what they do with AD, where they just
play him 25 minutes a game?
Yeah, I mean they're playing him, but he's just not playing much.
They can, but how? I don't know. If you're the Lakers, I think you have too many wins to really be a lottery team. That's
you're not
going
to. Well, you could. I mean, technically, they're still have an opportunity at a lottery spot, but I don't know, man.
It wouldn't make.
You're 4.5 games out with 18 to go. Is it 18 or 19?
It's 18, and I think they're 5.5 now.
Are they 5.5?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's not looking good. They haven't played with. They're on they've lost 7 of their last 10. They're on a 3-game losing streak now, and that's with LeBron playing all regular minutes and putting up regular numbers and stuff. But defensively, that's been the thing for the whole team, including LeBron.
Right.
We talked about it last week. It's they haven't found themselves defensively for whatever reason, and they do have other injuries too. Alonzo Ball's been out forever. Kuzma missed a little bit of time.
Undefeated.
Hart
never lost.
missed a little bit of time. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sure his dad has some kind of excuse why.
Lonzo Ball, I'll tell you what though, has really surprised me. I like this kid a lot. I think he's going to continue to grow, and I think that he would probably be best of these young kids to fit in on this team. If you're going to bring in the type of talent that they're talking about next year, that might be the kid I want on the team. I know you're going to they're probably getting rid of Kuzma, and you're probably getting rid of Ingram to get into some kind of if you're getting into a trade deal for AD. But I think Lonzo Ball fits, and as much as that kills me to say because I can't stand his dad,
Yeah.
but I kind of like the way he plays on this team. I mean, the guy, I feel like he could get 20 assists in a night.
So do I, and that's why I like him too. The only problem with that is on a LeBron James team, that historically that hasn't really been the kind of player that's worked. You surround LeBron with shooters because he's starting with the ball and he is either getting into the lane and finding a shooter or right, exactly. And that's what all those Cleveland teams and the Miami teams, they brought all those shooters in, all his buddies, the Mike Millers and the Kevin Loves and those guys and the Chris Bosches. They made guys into shooters even.
Right.
And so I feel like that's gonna they're gonna try to bring in AD or Kevin Durant or name your big time free agent, Kawhi Leonard or whoever, Kyrie,
Klay Thompson,
right? But all those guys can shoot. Right, so and Lonzo Ball can't. He can probably learn a lot of great stuff from LeBron, but I don't know how unless they
I'll
find
tell you what
some
he needs
way
to
to
do.
use them differently.
Listen, Bobby Knight, I always loved Bobby Knight growing up. Over the past few years in multiple documentaries, I've slowly started to dislike
exactly the same way.
Slowly started to dislike Bobby Knight a lot. But at the same time, he'd probably be good to go to Bobby Knight's, because Bobby Knight wouldn't let him shoot like that. He would force him to shoot the ball correctly.
That's
better form.
That's the thing. I think about that all the time.
If this dude's putting up 500 shots a day, dude, change your form. Just change slowly at a little bit at a time. I guarantee you become a better shooter.
Just let him know that he's right-handed. Just tell him he's right-handed, and that way he understands he doesn't have to shoot from the left side of his body with his right hand. That way he knows, oh, I'm right-handed. I shoot from the right side of my head. Okay.
Oh, so when I shoot, the ball comes from my right ear forward, not my left.
Now I can actually square up properly.
I mean, your hand's got to be in front of your eyes. You're basically putting a hand in your own face every time you shoot.
I have no explanation for why he is at this point in his career, all the basketball he's played. He's still a very young guy, but he's played basketball probably every day of his life for the last 20 years.
You seen the documentary, or not documentary, but the thing they did on him and his brothers, when it first started. LeVar, they didn't do homework until they got their shots up.
Yeah, LeVar, reverse parenting from LeVar Ball.
Undefeated, never lost.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is funny. He is a caricature.
That dude is something else.
But I agree with you about Lonzo. But he's missed a ton of time, so he's got to get healthy. And it's not going to be this year, and it's not going to be in time to really help them probably get back into playoff contention or anything like that. So they're probably going to miss the playoffs for the first time since I think for LeBron's going to miss it for the first time since his rookie year. I want to say I think that's the only time he's ever missed the playoffs. So, but it'll be, what? It might be because he's been to 8 straight finals. It's time for him to have an actual summer off.
It's not going to hurt him to sit down, I can tell you that. I mean, it's not going to hurt him to have a summer off.
He's 34 years old.
Take a break, get into next year with a Warriors type team, and then think about how much easier that's going to be on him.
I don't think you have to build it like that.
No, and they won't. You're not going to have a team like that because the Warriors had a lot of that was already there.
Right. Yeah, they built that thing from their draft. I mean, that was all draft until Kevin Durant, really. I mean,
well, Iguodala came over, but I mean, basically with Steph and Draymond and Clay, right, and then Iguodala came over and Durant and the whole rest is history. So, terrible.
Well, okay. So anyway,
hey, speaking of the NBA, real quick.
Yeah.
So this week. Today, so if you're a fan of the Nosebleed Sports Podcast, we appreciate that. We're live every single Wednesday, 10:30 p.m. We jump on here, catch us here, and then if you can't catch us here, Thursday mornings we're on all your favorite platforms from iTunes podcasts, Apple Podcasts to Google Play to YouTube and like 20 different other ones. So catch it there, but there will not be a Nosebleeds poll, which is the you got to help me out here.
The greatest NBA nickname
of all time, right? So that matchup will not be going up today. It'll be going up tomorrow because we don't have the official players yet.
Let me tell you why. Because I underperformed. I was incompetent, and I was supposed to. So the deal is, the very first week, our 1 versus 16 seed was Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon versus Allen Iverson, the answer. And we didn't realize until just a couple of weeks ago, but that actually ended up in a tie.
Right.
So because this past week was going to be our last first-round matchup, we were going to need to know the winner of that matchup to start the second round. So I was supposed to, on Saturday morning, get my butt out of bed early and post something on my Twitter to finalize to kind of redo the dream versus the answer poll on Twitter. So I failed to do that. So what I did when I remembered tonight at like 7:30.
So if you're listening, get on.
Yes.
Because you got 21 hours and 15 minutes. So basically at I don't know, what is that? 8 o'clock, 8:30, 8:30 on Thursday. March 7th.
Yes.
You can vote till. So I'm putting I'm on the Twitter. You can catch Adam on Twitter at
Adam Schmidt 44.
It's his latest tweet. Get on there, check out the poll. I'm gonna retweet it at Sick With It. And
you turkey, I know you're voting for the answer right now.
I just did it too, and he was already winning before I took this vote.
Gosh.
So it looks like the dream will not be going up against. Is it Michael? Is it Jordan? Is it Air Jordan?
I don't think.
Or did Jordan lose?
No.
It's just last week.
Oh, right. You know what?
It's all right. We'll get it put up. Yeah, he doesn't have anything. We will get this going much better next week.
Yeah.
And
either way. So it's gonna when the poll ends on Twitter to determine whether the answer or the dream is the better nickname tomorrow night. As soon as that is up, I'm going to post the next round, the first week of the second round, tomorrow night, Thursday night, on Facebook as per usual.
There you go. So then you can vote, get on, and help us out. All right. Yes. So from there, we're creeping up here towards the end. So we're gonna jump real quick into baseball. I want to talk about. We talked about Bryce Harper. He said he was going to make his decision by the end of last week. He did. Harper signs exactly like we had talked about. Did we talk about this already?
Not today.
No. Okay.
No. So
he's making all kinds of money. This dude signs with the Phillies. So Bryce Harper is I'm looking at you and I feel bad because you have no internet access.
Sorry.
At this time and you're dying over there.
It's 13 years, which
13 years.
That was surprising.
27. Is he 27 or 26?
He's 26, I think.
26. So 13 years. It takes him until he's almost 40. And 300 and how much?
330.
330.
So per year, it's not as much as Arenado or.
Oh, that's right.
It's 25. It's like 25.38 million a year.
But it's 13 years, and he has got a player option after the fourth year. 7th year. His is a 7th.
Seventh,
year.
okay,
Yeah.
7th. Yeah.
So anyway, huge signing for them. The Phillies are looking really good all of a sudden. And
they did last year already.
I mean, they did too. Yeah, that's true. But now you got Bryce Harper out here trying to recruit Mike Trout.
Man,
could you imagine Mike Trout, a Jersey kid? So I don't know how well that would go in Philly, but still an East Coast guy. You know he probably wants to get closer to home. He could sign the biggest deal ever, go to Philly, and be playing with that team right now, and the Phillies could all of a sudden become the Warriors.
Yeah, it's Mike Trout becomes a free agent after next year, I believe. And Bryce Harper did say, hey, you better believe I'm calling Mike Trout after the season next year to try to get him to Philly. And so already they're talking about Bryce Harper may get fined for tampering, which is, we heard it all through this season already in the NBA. LeBron talking about Anthony Davis and a few other guys. And that's, it's starting to get under my skin a little bit, the whole tampering thing. And the league,
is there a tampering thing in Major League Baseball too?
Major League Baseball has already contacted the Angels and Phillies about it. They are investigating it already.
Wow.
And it's getting under my skin because why, who cares? Who cares?
I have no idea why. What's the big deal if these guys talk about who they want to play on each other's team?
It's maybe one thing if decision makers in the front office are contacting other guys or whatever about coming. I can kind of understand that.
Sure, there's days and dates that you're allowed to start having negotiations with other teams and things like that. But if you're a player, I agree. You're excited. I'm going to let you go. You're just talking to your fellow players, your friends around the league about playing together. And you know it happens. It's just because he said it in front of a microphone.
Yes.
And they asked him, he said, "No, I don't take any of that back."
No, yeah. And
I wouldn't either.
I like
because
that.
I guarantee he said it 13, 14, 15 other times and probably has talked directly to Mike Trout about it, over the phone. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the big deal? Why is that such a big deal?
I just don't like. I kind of understand where leagues wouldn't like it, but to get fined for something like that,
you shouldn't get fined, especially for a player. I can't do anything because I say, hey, could you imagine if Mike Trout came over here with us? Boy, I want him here. I want Mike Trout to play with me. First off, who wouldn't? Second off, I'm not making any decisions. I have no power at all over who I'm trading or how much we'll pay him in free agency or anything like that. Well, why am I getting fined? I'm just telling you how I feel.
You saying that
you're asking me a question, I'm answering it.
You saying that does not void his contract with the Angels.
No,
it doesn't. Exactly. Nothing happens. You can say
He may have never even talked to Trout. Trout might hate Bryce Harper.
Yeah, maybe he does. A lot of people do.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Like if I talk to you about the company I work for, and I'm like, man, I would love for you to come work with me, man. It would be so fun. You should come out and work. I'm sure your company wouldn't be happy about that, but what are they going to do? I mean, we're just talking, you know? It's not, if you're under contract, I don't think you're under contract with them, but it's, so maybe this is a bad example. But
I'm under contract. I'm under contract with the Nosebleed Sports Podcast.
And so am I. So when our contract runs out in 2058,
Stephen A. Smith's already been hollering at me. Maybe that's tampering. I don't know.
It is. And ESPN's going to get involved, and the FCC is going to get involved, and the FBI is going to get involved probably.
We're in trouble now.
You guys are going to be in jail with the people from Adidas that are spending time in there because of the whole shoe deal, college basketball recruiting. So I don't even want to get into that.
So let me tell you something that just happened.
Okay.
The King has officially passed Michael Jordan. It is official. I appreciate Alex and Tyler, always long listeners. They just let us know on the comments that it is official. LeBron James has passed Michael in scoring.
It's a sad day. It's truly
maybe
a sad
for you,
day.
but I love it. Records were made to be broke. I mean, he doesn't have the record anyway. He's still got to keep going.
It's fourth, I believe.
Yeah.
He passes it for fourth all the time.
So who you got left? You got Kobe, you got Kareem, and you got
Karl Malone.
Malone. I always forget about Malone. That's the one. The mailman who's in our made it past the first round in the Nosebleed Sports podcast.
Yep.
Best nicknames of all time.
He's still alive. He would be probably a 1 seed for biggest jerk ever in
I've heard
basketball
that.
history.
I've heard that, but he's always really funny in interviews. It seems like.
Yeah, he's a hillbilly.
Oh yeah, he'll be the first one to tell you. Be the first one to tell you. Anyway, all right.
Not a Karl Malone fan.
Yeah,
incredible player. But anyway,
sure.
You know who I was a fan of though. Speaking of
who were you a fan?
Speaking of people who were athletes when we were growing up, when we were kids.
Yeah.
King Kong Bundy.
Oh, R.I.P. R.I.P. King Kong. King Kong Bundy passed away yesterday or today?
Yesterday, I think it was. Yeah.
Sad day in the world of wrestling. I think he was 61 years old.
He was only 61. That
61 years old.
I thought he would be way older than
I'm just telling you that if you look at some of these guys, none of them are that old, man. These wrestlers are dying off quick. It's young. I feel bad for the future. Obviously, I know that the WWE and Vince McMahon has put a ton of money into the CTE stuff and things like that. But they should, because, I mean, it's obviously a problem.
That thing, especially when we were younger watching, Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior and all those King Kong Bundy and Andre the Giant and those guys, it was, people talk about pro wrestling being fake, and it is, but it also is really grueling on your body.
Yeah.
Those guys travel way more than people think. They travel, and the wrestling, actually the wrestling is really, really tough on their bodies. I mean,
right.
They put themselves through all kinds of stuff. And all that mixed in with all the drugs and stuff that was going on. I mean, that's been well documented. All the drugs that those guys did. Man, you read stuff about Jake the Snake and all those, a whole bunch of guys, and it was crazy back then. And I don't know how much of that stuff, how much King Kong Bundy was involved in that, but 61 just seems young. Number one, seems a lot younger than he would be, because I feel like that was decades and decades ago.
Yeah.
But that's not very old. But what the other thing that stuck out to me when I was reading about this?
Yeah.
That guy was 6'4", 458, 458 lbs.
That is a big songong.
That is, you know what that is? That's 3 of me.
Yeah, it's okay. You know how big Zion Williamson is? It's 2 Zion Williamsons.
It's 2 Zion Williamsons.
Think about that. Could you imagine putting
Golly.
Zion? That's a big man.
He was enormous, but he was,
That's why he was King Kong, man.
King Kong Bundy.
King Kong
His
Bundy.
real name was Christopher Pallies or something, or Paulies or something like that. It's always funny to hear the wrestlers' real names.
I just love that a 6'6", 450-pound man wore a one-piece leotard that just barely covered his nipples.
He and Andre the Giant both.
Andre wore the one, and he just did the one strap.
Right.
Yeah, King Kong did the 2 strap.
Yeah. I mean, they that was back in the day when you either wore the flat out undies, the Hulk Hogan undies,
the Hulk Hogan underwear,
or the wrestling singlet. I mean, those were wrestling singlets that they're wearing, like wrestling.
I mean, I feel like the wrestling singlet he has on was made for a 12-year-old, but
it was made for a real, actual, normal-sized person, and he was double that. So anyway. Rest in peace, King Kong Bundy. It's always sad to see, athletes and famous people from when you were growing up and you were a fan of whatever die off. And Luke Perry just died the other day from 90210. I never watched that show.
Really? Luke Perry died?
Luke Perry died.
What happened
from
to him?
90210. I'm not sure. It was some heart failure or something like that.
Man, he was a heartthrob, man. Heartthrob back in the day.
Right, and that came back to bite him. The heart stuff did.
And
he that's when his heart was throbbing for a few minutes there, and then it stopped throbbing. But apparently he's from Ohio. He was a big Reds fan.
Nice.
So that's kind of why that story kind of stuck out to me.
There you go. Now, before we get off of here, you had a little something going on with some food, I understand.
I did. I feel like I made you proud, and I hope I don't build that up too much to disappoint you here. But so I got really, I saw it the day before, but then I got the text of the year that I look forward to every year, which is Girl Scout cookies are in. Girl Scout cookies are in. Girl Scout cookies are here.
They're not just in, but they are covering my fridge.
Okay, good. So this is what happened to me. I'm driving around. I think I went to lunch or something like that on Saturday, and on the street corner in front of this business over by where I live, there are just people outside on the corner selling Girl Scout cookies.
Don't you love it?
I pulled into this parking lot and walked down. Bought 2 boxes right away.
Attaboy.
And then a couple of days later, just yesterday, I got the ones I actually ordered from my cousin's daughters. And so anyway, here's what I did.
Let's hear it. What? First off, what were they?
Okay, so
You're a Thin Mint guy.
My pattern. Well, I'm a Thin Mint guy, and we talked about the tag-alongs. We both love the tag-alongs. So that's what I do: 1 box of Thin Mints, 1 box of tag-alongs. Okay?
Gotcha.
Now, your idea, your invention with the tag-alongs, the little bite with the dunk, and you let it soak in.
Yes.
I tried it.
And?
You're on to something there, buddy.
Dude, I'm telling you.
You are on to something.
I'm telling you.
That's a good trick.
Phenomenal. Listen, I came up with this during the NCAA tournament about 10 years ago, and I only eat tag-alongs, and I only eat them this way.
Let me tell you, I did it with the milk and everything. It worked out great. It was really good. It was like another layer of like milk in there with the chocolate and the peanut butter. It's perfect. I got to tell you, though, I'm not going to be able to do it consistently because you were right. You're going to get the milky tips, all right?
Yeah.
The milky tips on the fingers. I can't dip my fingers in the milk and then continue consuming the milk. I just can't do it.
I didn't think about that for you. I was just going to tell you to get a paper towel so you can wipe your fingers off when you got done every time.
I don't want to put, even if I wash my hands,
in my eyes, I don't care about putting my fingers in my milk. I just want to get them dried off before. So that's the deal. The thing for you is, man, there's got to be a way to fix it. I don't know what it is, but maybe turn the cookie a little bit more to the side and keep it a little higher. But you're going to end up with more dry.
You're going to get it actually pouring
in. It's a deal, man. I'm telling you. So for those of you who don't know, tag-alongs, cookie, peanut butter, chocolate covered. Take a nibble, just a nibble out of a piece of it. Break the cookie.
I think I did that perfectly too.
I
was surprised.
You have to break the cookie.
Yes.
You have to break the actual cookie a little bit, and just on a little bit of an angle. With the cookie, the bitten part of the cookie at like a 45-degree angle in the air, drop it down in the milk. You're going to get milky fingers. It's going to happen. But it soaks the milk into the cookie, and the cookie doesn't fall apart and fall into your drink because it is surrounded by chocolate that holds it together and keeps the milk inside the cookie. Therefore, you get the soggy cookie taste with peanut butter and chocolate covered. Oh my gosh, I'm having one tonight. I'm having a whole box tonight. Do you know how many boxes I currently have in my pantry?
I do not.
I've already eaten 4 boxes of tag-alongs. I just got 2 more from my buddy down the street. He called me and asked me. He said his daughter had a few extra boxes and wanted to know if I wanted some. I said yes, I'll take 2 more. I currently have I have 8 boxes in the pantry and I've eaten 4. So I'm a tag-along nut, dude.
That's awesome. I have a total of 4 boxes. I've eaten a total of 2 boxes of tag-alongs and 2 boxes of Thin Mints. So I've eaten a half a box of Thin Mints and 1 box of tag-alongs, which is great for me because I can sit there and just eat them all night long without stopping. So I've exercised a little bit of self-control. I've been just throwing a few of them in a bag, take to lunch to work every day.
No chance. I open that box is gone.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm trying not to do that.
And the tag-alongs, there's not that many in them, so it's easy to do.
Very easy.
So my niece called me the other day, and she's selling her cookies at Kroger's. They sit in front of Kroger's.
That's the other thing. Every time I go to Kroger, I'm going to buy another box.
So my sister-in-law asked if I wanted some. I said, yeah, 5. And she was like, no, they're only $4 a piece. I said, no, I want 5 boxes. So she brought me 5 boxes.
I got a 20 spot burning a hole in my pocket.
I got to find something to do with it.
I got to get a little return on my investment.
That's right, buddy. Somebody's getting a return on that investment. All right. Next week, we'll have some more on the Nosebleeds Sports Podcast Best NBA Nickname of All Time. We'll have some more college basketball. Baseball season's getting hot and heavy.
It is.
So a lot of good spring training stuff. Maybe we'll get to start getting some red stuff going and things like that. And obviously, we will continue to talk more and more about the NBA. Until then, Adam Schmidt, you have a great night.
You do the same.
I will. And don't forget to turn your headlights on.